Welcome to the meeting of the Entertainment and Facilities Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Rue, Mr. Kokori, and Mr. Buscaino. Madam Clerk, unless there's any objection, I'd like to take items 5 through 9 on consent. Okay, seeing none, so without objection, that will be the order. We're joined by Mr. O'Farrell. Let's begin by taking item 1. Madam Clerk, can you please read that into the record?
Yes, for item 1, you have motion Martinez, Bond, and Price instructing the Chief Legislative Analyst to report on the correlation between large-scale sporting events and a potential increase in human trafficking and prostitution.
Okay, we have 2 cards for this item. I'm going to take those 2 public cards before we begin, before I call the departments up. Ms. McAllister, are you here? Item 1, you have 1 minute.
As I spoke in the City Council meeting this morning, these licenses that you're giving...
Hold on for just a second, ma'am. I'm sorry. We're trying to get the clock. Go ahead.
Okay, you're giving too many liquor licenses. This is an easy one right here. You're saying that where you're having these sports events, you're having heavy trafficking and prostitution in those communities that are adjacent. Well, the solution is very easy. Take the liquor licenses away. Men tend to recruit prostitutes when they get drunk. When they get drunk, they want to screw everything, even a doorknob. Okay, so get the liquor out of there, and that's solved. You guys are giving liquor licenses like it's going out of style lately, okay? Homosexuality, prostitution, that's going on too. And you never talk about that as if that's legal. That is not legal. So city officials, you and your donors are helping smuggling these illegal aliens into this city and this nation, you Democrats, and that's what's causing a lot of suffering because people can't find jobs, they don't have housing. So the last solution is prostitution. So start building the affordable housing and get these illegal aliens out of this country and bring the jobs back, and that'll solve the problem too.
Next speaker, Jessica Postigo. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to move to give her a couple more minutes. She's the president of our Commission of Status of Women, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Council Member, for the introduction. As President of the Commission on the Status of Women, I would like to extend our thanks to Council Member Martinez for her continued support on our efforts in human trafficking, and also the Los Angeles Police Department, and very specifically the coordinator for the Department in Human Trafficking, Detective Lena Teague, who has been doing, both of you, thank you so much for the wonderful work you have been doing to eradicate human trafficking in Los Angeles. So the Commission on the Status of Women strongly supports this motion and urges the committee to approve it in order to develop and implement training and educational programs to identify victims of human trafficking in advance of the preseason of football this month. But I'd also like to request that the motion include how to report instances of human trafficking, not just identify them, and also include labor trafficking, if possible. We know that 55% of forced labor victims are young girls and women, and 98% of sex trafficking victims are young women and girls. As we know, the available data from the FBI on other cities tells us that these large sporting events exacerbate the problem of human trafficking because they increase demand and activity. We believe that increasing visibility on the issue at these high attendance events is crucial to increasing citizens' awareness of everyday human trafficking. To increase such awareness, I would like to recommend the enforcement of the postings of these signs per Senate Bill 1193, added Section 52.6 to the Civil Code. The law requires that these specified businesses, I'm not going to go through all of them, there's about 12 of them on the list on the Department of Justice, the California General Attorney's website, and it requires that they are posted, and the penalty for not posting them is $500. in the first time and $1,000 each time after. I think that is good revenue for the city, and it's also, we could get into the habit, just like the restaurants have their ABCs, we could have these. And what these specific posting mandates would help victims report and find the assistance needed. But also they would help in creating this awareness. Very briefly, currently the Commission on the Status of Women is partnered with the LAPD on training city employees, such as GRID, and hope to systematically roll out trainings for other city employees, such as building and safety, housing inspectors, MTA workers. And we look forward to the post-certified mandatory training of all LAPD officers, hopefully beginning in December. The LAPD and the Commission on the Status of Women are coordinating also the development and implementation of awareness campaigns to ensure that all stakeholders within the city are informed about human trafficking and its indicators. We have been successful in conducting tailored trainings programs for hotel and motel employees, but LAPD will be speaking more about that today, and also gang reduction and youth development staff. But as the Los Angeles Rams return to Los Angeles, and in 2021 the Super Bowl will be located in Los Angeles, it is crucial that we implement in advance a plan to ensure that Angelenos are safe from victimization in the sex and labor trafficking trade. While the economy of Los Angeles will no doubt benefit from this revitalization of sports events, the underground slavery economy will also flourish. Therefore, it is crucial that Los Angeles be prepared to combat illegal sex and labor trading by implementing comprehensive law enforcement and community awareness campaign with focus on providing victims with the resources by which to exit the trade. So the Commission on the Status of Women would be proud to partner with this committee to implement recommendations coming from the City Council as to methods that ensure human trafficking does not escalate as Los Angeles absorbs another large sports team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'd like to call, who's here from the department?
Commander Blake Chow, Operations West Bureau, and I believe we have some people from Detective.
Sure, can we approach the table? Who else is going to speak on this item? And before you get started, I just want to make a quick disclaimer is that this is a very sensitive issue. And so I would caution my colleagues that if we can be very cognizant that we should not be asking questions in terms of your dates and times for undercover task force activities. It would be beneficial to the department so that we're not giving up crucial information as to when we conduct some of the undercover activities as it pertains to human trafficking. Yes. I just want to be very sensitive to that because we shouldn't be giving those dates and times out so that folks are not knowing when we're going to go out there and crack down on some of this stuff. And the intent is to really get law enforcement and some of the hotel establishments sort of ahead of the curve as we begin the football season and as it pertains to the big game in 2021.
Yes.
The Super Bowl. So that's the intent, is how we're going to get ourselves coordinated and without giving too much information out so that we're not hindering our opportunities to go out and conduct undercover activities.
Right. As I mentioned, my name's Commander Blake Chow. I'm Assistant CO at Operations West Bureau. I can answer questions with respect to kind of what Pacific Division is planning on doing. And I have my partners here from Detective Bureau that can answer specifically about the human trafficking training and what the rollout is citywide in that respect. So if you want to start.
Good afternoon. I'm Detective Lena Teague. I'm the officer in charge of the Human Trafficking Unit within Detective Bureau. We have, our main focus will be education. Education is going to be key here, and that's going to be education of hotel staff, managers on how to recognize human trafficking and, more importantly, how to report it. We're also going to focus on the levels of the Johns or the purchaser. We have the street purchaser, and that's going to be your individual who will go out on the tracks, our major tracks within Los Angeles, and they're going to buy these young girls for commercial sex. We also have the high-end purchaser. These are going to be the individuals who will be on the intranet, who will be accessing escort services. And then we're going to have focus on the conventioneer, which is the very high end. He goes to the hotels. He has these prestigious box seats at the game events, and he will most likely have somebody organize an escort for him. Recognizing these three avenues, we have systems in place where we're going to pretty much infiltrate those three avenues and hope to prevent a young lady from being commercially exploited.
And then from kind of the boots on the ground perspective, Pacific obviously is the vice unit that handles that whole area kind of along Century. We work hand in glove with Detective Bureau regarding the training. We've helped push that training out to our security counterparts that are already working the hotels. And Pacific has already been proactively kind of working in the hotels, working through the internet and some of the websites that bring some of the prostitutes into the city. And any time that we have something where we feel like there's some human trafficking involved, immediately we make a notification to DSVD and we kind of take that investigation as far as we need to. So our plan, once the NFL season starts ramping up, is obviously during games we will deploy more officers into that area to kind of supplement what DSVD is doing. And then, before the games, a few days before the games, we'll have more officers in the hotels and things like that working that aspect. So hopefully we can identify some victims and kind of work some of those organized angles and help enforce that piece.
Lieutenant Murray, do you want to add anything? I haven't seen you in a uniform in a long time. Lieutenant Murray got promoted. He used to work out
Oh,
of...
and he has a tie on, too.
Yeah, look at you. You clean up well. And we've been on several sting operations in the Valley. He was actually stationed at Foothill when I first got elected. So we go way back, 3 years, right? But now he's a big shot lieutenant. And he moved to a different bureau, but it's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
And we did good work together. Well, mostly you. I just kind of tagged along.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for your support of the department in the Valley and here on the west side as well. I'd just like to add that in the partnership with DSVD, they've actually already done some of this training at the request of Pacific Vice with the hotel security staff. There's a request from CD11 from Councilman Bonin's office that they'd like to have them come in and also actually do the same training with the hotel management so they can kind of get on the same sheet of music. But they've been supportive in the effort as well.
Members, I can open up to questions, but I have a couple myself. Have we learned anything from other jurisdictions that currently have an NFL team as it relates to human trafficking? Other cities?
Yes, ma'am. I did some reach out to Oakland, San Diego, other venues that have large-scale events. And we did learn that just the saturation is key, is you have to front-load all of this. I do have some tricks. Obviously, I won't explain what they are, but we have reached out and we've learned some valuable lessons from their mistakes and from their successes.
And how many trainings do you anticipate having, and when are you going to get going on those specific trainings you mentioned earlier?
We have begun training with the hotel staff. That's going to be our primary focus, is the hotel staff. And we're looking to train individuals at the Coliseum, the law enforcement agency there, just to recognize and report. We anticipate that with the help of all of my bureaus, my fellow bureaus, to train as many individuals as we can. It's on a request basis.
Is there are you currently coordinating with the City of Inglewood? I mean, the Rams are here temporarily, but eventually they're going to move to a brand new stadium, as is the Super Bowl going to be hosted in that city. Do you have any coordination, or are you in talks between LAPD and the Inglewood Police Department?
Yes, ma'am, that is in the works.
Members, do you have any questions? Mr. Krikorian?
Your last question was what I was pondering about. West is taking the lead on this, but for the next 2 years, the Rams are going to be in the Coliseum. So I assume that the work that you're doing is going to be part of a department-wide effort. You're going to be sharing with the other bureaus what you're doing, and is the Coliseum I'm not even sure, is Coliseum in Central or South?
Southwest.
South. Okay, so they're going to be implementing the same sorts of things. I
Absolutely. I mean, this is best practices, even though, because we've kind of had that problem along that Century Corridor for a while anyway, but
Yeah.
obviously since they're playing in the Coliseum, it could affect some of the hotels that are north on Figueroa into downtown, but that'll definitely all be shared with our fellow bureaus.
Right, and likewise, what we're doing here will be foundational to other things that the city is working towards, like an expanded convention center, which will be bringing in a lot more downtown visitors, obviously looking towards the 2024 Olympics and all that will entail along these lines as well. And there's been some mention of the training of hotels. I know that the hospitality industry has already generated a best practices program that they're trying to roll out nationally with training of hotel staff at different chains throughout the country. Has that been part of this effort as well? Have you already built a partnership with the hospitality industry to take advantage of some of the things that they're already doing?
I'm working with Orange County, and they are partners with the hospitality industry, and actually we are going to begin shadowing their training next month. So
Great.
we will be working with our partner agencies.
Terrific.
And we have, looking at Hollywood, we've got the Hospitality Forum over there that's run out of Hollywood Division. That's a great avenue to get information out, as well as a security organization and the hotel owners organization in Pacific Division.
And what they do have, Pacific has, is they have a security bid. That's where actually DSVD put on their first training for the security staff. The hotel bid is sort of separate. That's run by Lori Hughes over there, and that's what we're going to try to get the DSVD linked up with to provide this training to the management themselves as opposed to just the security
Right.
staff.
Right, because it really has to be comprehensive throughout their staff, desk staff, room service staff. All of those folks have to be trained on identifying the warning signs. It's not just a security issue.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Did we learn anything from San Francisco this past Super Bowl? I remember the reason we even came up with this motion was because I'd read that there have been several sting operations, and some of the football players themselves got caught up in a prostitution sting. I don't think any of them were prosecuted. In fact, they were just sent back home. But I can't recall the name of the player, but he wasn't one of the starters. I know that. He was just sent back home instead of sticking around. But have we reached out to any of the folks up north?
Yes, I have, ma'am, and they did not share that part with me.
Oh, it was in the paper. In fact, it was in the news that one of the players, in fact, the way it was presented was that there was a party, and folks kind of showed up to this party, and people weren't aware that there were girls there or drugs, and somehow they got caught up. I guess you just show up to parties without not knowing who necessarily is there or who's hosting it. I don't know how that happens, but and that's how some of these folks got arrested. But I don't believe any of them were prosecuted, and it was sort of that was the big news, is that no one was prosecuted, but several of them got caught up in the sting operation. So I'm wondering how that came about, and is there any other additional information that we can sort of learn? Can they share with us so that we can learn from that example?
Okay, I'll definitely reach out to them in that sense specifically, but that sounds like more of an isolated incident where a party was invited guests only, or perhaps. What we spoke about more so was the global issue of preventing these young ladies from being exploited. We do work in partnership with our Innocence Lost Task Force, and they are also up north. So we have an officer embedded in the Innocence Lost Task Force within our unit. So definitely we'll reach out and look into that.
Members, any other questions? Well, seeing none. Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you coming here. It was great to see you, Lieutenant Murray. And colleagues, I'd like to continue this item for 30 days until our next meeting to receive a status update on the coordination activities of the start of the season. The season doesn't start until, I think the first game is Sunday. Something's happening Sunday. Come on. All right. I don't watch
Saturday's
football, but I
preseason.
know something. It's preseason.
Saturday's preseason.
Saturday's preseason. So if we would come back with a status report and an update as to the coordination activities that as we begin the football season, that would be great. And I'd also like to include the two items that Jessica included earlier. Where are you? And that was you want a report, how are we reporting on the human trafficking incidences? And then the second thing is the posting of the posters of SB 1193. So we can include that as well in the report. Oh, sorry. And also include the labor trafficking aspect of all this. Okay. I think Madam Clerk, you have it all?
Yes.
All right. So it's going to come back in 30 days. So let's move on to item 2.
On item 2, motion Martinez-Krikorian relative to the formation of a working group which has been instructed to report on the feasibility of initiating a civic center revitalization plan to assess and coordinate revitalization opportunities for the Van Nuys Civic Center.
And I have no cards on this item, so we're going to go ahead and begin our presentation. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to see you on your other role.
At the table. My name is Stephanie Magnin-Rockwell, Office of the CAO Asset Management Group. We look forward to working with your office as well as other members of the working group on strategic planning for both long-term and short-term plans to revitalize the Van Nuys Civic Center. We have a framework in place that we've currently implementing in the downtown Civic Center for strategic planning on this area, and it's a model that I think we can replicate in the Valley as well.
Well, this members also came from, I feel, just a real sense of urgency to try to revitalize this area. I think we have a tremendous opportunity with the potential of the Metro San Fernando Valley Transit Corridor coming into what's basically the heart of the valley. Along with other initiatives such as the Great Streets Initiative that's also underway on Van Nuys Boulevard. And I don't get the sense that we're coordinated. The Browdy building is beautiful, and it's been in existence for over a decade, but you see anytime you drive on Van Nuys Boulevard, you see the number of vacancies, retail vacancies, and there's a number of reasons for that. There's a possibility or an opportunity for us to do something with Fire Station 39 that can potentially be moving to Oxnard once we build their new fire station. That's a beautiful historical building. We should be able to leverage that to try to do something different along the corridor. So I really have a sense of urgency. I see all these revitalization opportunities throughout the city of Los Angeles, and I would really like to see that in my hometown. So it's sort of I want to piggyback on what other communities are doing and learn from that, but at the same time, I don't feel like we have a real strategic plan in place and real serious players to help us move this plan along. So that's the purpose of this.
Yeah, so I think there are a number of potential catalytic plans and developments that are happening in and around this area that I think by starting the strategic planning now, we can really take advantage of in the coming months and years.
Members, do you have any questions? Mr. Corrin?
Well, I just want to applaud you for this, Madam Chair, because I think it's going to be a real game changer for that stretch of Van Nuys Boulevard. I would also throw in that, speaking of major players, you also have congressional offices, state legislative offices in that exact same facility, and I don't know what the appropriate way to integrate them into that would be, but you do have the potential for potential funding sources and others from some of those other governmental entities. And to the extent that Metro can be engaged in that discussion, I'd certainly encourage and offer that.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons we brought this motion forward. There's also to try to reactivate the plaza area, which is very underutilized. There's not a whole lot of activity there. In fact, it's, a lot of the folks that live in the apartment buildings don't utilize the library after dark because it's not necessarily the safest, or they don't feel it's well lit. There's nothing going on there for anyone to utilize that place after 5 o'clock. Once people leave, they leave for the day, and no one sticks around to dine or do anything in that area. So I think it's a missed opportunity.
I know your office has been working on ways on programming the space with movies in the Park Plaza. But But I think building on that would be another great opportunity to draw some additional folks into the area after hours.
Do you think it'll make sense to discount the lease rate to be able to fill some of the vacancies at Broderie? Have you looked at that?
That's not something that my group does, but another working group member that you've identified, General Services Department, would play a role in deciding that.
Yeah, there have been given several reasons as to why we can't fill those vacancies, but we don't seem to ever have a plan in place to try to overcome those obstacles, and that's why I'm asking, because some of the, you have small little coffee shops that basically are there for one and a half year, and then they take off, and you have another vacancy. So I'm just trying to think of other ways to incentivize people to lease that building. But if you don't have any other questions, members, Mr. Wu.
Madam Chair, this is great. Thank you for doing this motion and working on this. My district's just like 2 blocks away, so and I think it's going to revitalize the whole area. Are you going to continue this in committee?
Yes, and in fact, I have
great.
several suggestions. I'd like to hold the motion in committee for 60 days, and I'd like to add a couple of instructions.
Because I was just going to say, I just want to be updated on
Sure.
this. Love to get involved, whatever my office could do to support. And then once some sort of plan is made, I'm sure we're probably going to solicit some community input as well. There's some strong groups over there, and it's going to affect the entire area. So I'm very applaud your efforts.
Great. So members, I'd like to hold the item in committee for 60 days. So that would probably bring it back to our October meeting in order to schedule the following reports back. And the first one is to amend the motion to have the CAO's office act as the lead agency and to instruct the city staff to report on the feasibility of initiating the Civic Center revitalization plan. 2, to request the city attorney to report back on the possibility of developing a competitive lease rates in the surrounding market while taking into account the cost of doing business with the city, which is what I was asking about the lease, how we're going about the lease rates. 3rd is request the CAO and GSD to begin the process of identifying tenants to lease space at the Brody building. 4, to request the CAO and GSD to report back on the opportunities for developing lease space within the plaza. So this is that area that we'd like to sort of activate, kiosk, whatever types of opportunities for folks to enjoy after 5 o'clock would be ideal. 5 is request the CAO and GST to report back on any opportunities to utilize the U.S. Post Office site that's located right on Van Nuys and Delano. They have been closed for over a year, and I've no idea what the plans are to move someone new in there. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, yeah. So let's work with the United States Postal Service to identify what the plans moving forward are going to be for that site. And then 6 is to request the CAO and the GSD to report back on the process for repurposing Fire Station 39, which I mentioned earlier, with the intent of maintaining the historical significance of the structure while adding back to the economic vitality of the Van Nuys corridor. That's another opportunity that within the next year or two, if we're able to move the fire station to Oxnard, it's going to be a real opportunity for us to be able to do something different with that building. So members, if there are no objections, seeing none, that would be the order, and let's move on to item 3. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Item 3, City Attorney Report and Ordinance relative to adding a new Chapter 171 to Division 5 of the Los Angeles Administrative Code, establishing a South Park Open Space Maintenance Trust Fund.
Also here on...
Yes, you're on reporting on this item soon.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So this ordinance codifies a policy that was approved by this committee in April and by the full council in May. It effectuates the city's administration of the South Park Open Space Maintenance Fee, which was originally developed by the CRA to generate and collect funds from South Park property owners to operate and maintain open space within the South Park neighborhood of downtown. And at the moment, that includes Grand Hope Park and the Hope Street Family Center. So these fees are collected from property owners and developers who received funding from CRA LA and had agreed to pay into this fee to operate and maintain those two parks, which are now owned by the Department of Rec and Parks since the dissolution of the agency.
Okay. I have no cards on this item. Members, are there any questions on item 3? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to approve this item? Anyone?
Move approval.
All right, thank you. So
Second.
moved.
Thank
Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 4. Madam Clerk, can you read that item into the record?
Motion Fuentes Harris Dawson relative to taking the necessary steps to declare the city-owned property located on Harding Street, north of Foothill Boulevard, and adjacent to the Foothill Freeway as a surplus asset, and to evaluate the feasibility of a direct sale.
Okay, I understand that GSD is requesting for us to amend this motion. Is that correct?
Dave Roberts, GSD. Actually, the motion states we should do a Class A appraisal, and the question I had for Arcelia earlier today, it's only a 1,000 square foot site.
Okay.
So we thought we could do our own internal valuation if that was permissible. Otherwise, we'll do a Class A appraisal, but there's no other issues that are related to this transaction, this motion.
So we don't need to amend this motion then?
We could.
That was my understanding, in order for you to complete the valuation report.
Yeah, would you please do
All
that?
right,
Yeah.
so then let's do that. If there are no objections, I'd like to amend the motion to direct GSD to complete the valuation report yourselves, which is what you're requesting for. Are there any objections?
No objections.
Okay, seeing none, that would be the order?
Yes.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay, I have no cards on this item either, Madam Clerk. We're good.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to item 10.
Motion O'Farrell Martinez authorizing the Department of General Services to negotiate and execute a temporary lease with Goodwill Southern California.
Is there someone here to report on this item?
There we go.
I think this is in your district.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Rennan. I'm the facilities manager for the LAPD. And these two leases are going to assist us in making it through the period of time. We've just completed the construction of the new Northeast police station. We're tearing down the old police station that was right next door, and funding is available in this current fiscal year to start the construction of parking structure. The tightness of that site really requires us to look off-site for parking in the interim. And these two leases with Riverfront Studios and with Goodwill will allow us to have parking in the area for our officers and our civilian employees to make it through the time while we're building the parking structure.
Okay. Are there any questions, Mr. Farrell?
Tom said it all. Just we have the good graces of Goodwill and the Riverfront Studios and others who support the LAPD Northeast Division, making their lots available during this interim, which could be about a 2-year period. But the good news is the funding for the parking structure, which was not funded at the tail end of the recent bond experience. But at least we got a new station out of it, but there was not funding for a parking structure. So it's extremely underparked. But we have good neighbors who are willing to lend a hand. And so I hope that we'll grant this authority to negotiate.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, Mr. O'Farrell, would you like to move?
I move that we authorize the negotiation of the temporary use of these locations while the parking structure gets underway and opens.
Okay, I second that. So moved. Thank you very much. That concludes our items, Madam Clerk. I do have one card for public comment. Patricia McAllister? Yes. You have 1 minute for public comment, ma'am.
What I see here is what I see a lot in politics. You cause the problem, and then you make money by trying to solve it. I noticed lately every week you're giving liquor licenses. One liquor license, I investigated the property, was a ma and pa storefront in a poor community. You're creating alcoholics. In the next 10 years, then you'll be trying to build more AA, Alcoholic Anonymous centers, and worrying about the alcohol problem that we have with our citizens. Okay, stop smuggling in illegal aliens, taking the jobs of Americans, especially black people. They won't have to turn to alcohol. And stop smuggling in these children to be prostituted. So you can't fool me. You're causing the problem, and then you sit in here like you're card-carrying Catholics talking about you want to save the people and make some money. I wouldn't have your job. You couldn't pay me to do what you're doing. You have to be a snake to do what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. All right, that concludes cards for public comment, Madam Clerk. So I move that we adjourn our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.